Hi guys, we're exploring Long Wharf Preserve today, and I just found a really cool bird. I'm going to flip you around to check it out.
This right here is a yellow-crowned night heron. Let's see what he's up to. What kind of habitat is he living in? Look at the tall grass that he can hide in. What is he eating? Where is he nesting? These are all questions you need to ask when you're looking at a creature in its habitat. Oh, look! There's a juvenile yellow-crowned night heron. How cool is that? We just saw the adult, and now here's the juvenile. Let's see what he's up to now. He's walking in the same habitat as the adult, foraging for snails and little fish. So we know that this is a good habitat for these night herons to live in. It's where they nest, it's where they eat, it's where they live. Look at those long stilt-like legs. Those are used so they can walk in the mud. Look at how well it's walking in the mud. And they're also that long so they can stay really still, so that anything that they're stalking thinks that they're a reed or a stick. How cool is that?
So last week when I was here, I saw a nest with 4 robin's eggs in it, and we're going to check it out to see what the status of it is. Status doesn't look too good for at least one of them, but there are 2 that are still in there, so there's still hope as long as mom comes back. So the bird just making all that racket was actually a type of mockingbird, and hear the word mocking, it means that it's mimicking other birds. So this plant right behind me is poison ivy. I'm going to show you what features tell you that it's poison ivy. And there's a really loud mockingbird that's right above me, so they're going to be interrupting me. So what we're looking at is the 3 leaves that are the distinguishing feature of poison ivy. So 1, 2, 3, right here, there's some red leaves. And then we have some dull green. So remember, what we're looking at are the 3 leaves. Some are red, some are shiny, some are green. But what we're looking at is that this plant is not a plant you want to touch. This plant is not your friend. You'll get really itchy and break out in a rash. So watch out when you're walking along the trails for this plant. The main point is just to watch out for it. It's not going to come running after you. You just have to know what it looks like. So what we have here is a type of butterfly. I can tell it's a butterfly if you look at its antenna, that they're straight. They're not feathered. So that's a characteristic of a moth, if they have feathered antenna. So here we're in the upland habitat of Long Wharf Preserve. You can see there's more trees up here. There's sumac right behind me. That's not the poison sumac that you can get sick from. It's actually a really important native that's super important for birds, and it's the berries that are an important food source for them. So you can see that from the upland habitat it goes down into the salt marsh, and then along the shoreline, into the river, into the Long Island Sound. So this sign shows you the different types of organisms that would live here. You have the rabbit, the butterfly, the tern, the horseshoe crab, the egrets, the important mollusks, and the water that goes into the Long Island Sound.
What's that? Everybody see that? There's a bumblebee. It looks like it's doing a little dance. Oh, maybe it's just cleaning itself. Let's take a second to watch it.
So as we're exploring these habitats, these coastal habitats, I want to show you something really, really neat. So as I've been walking down the path, I keep on seeing what looks like spit on these plants, but I know that it's not really spit, so I'm going to show you what it actually is. So this right here is what is known as a spittle bug. So what's inside all these little bubbles is actually a nymph form, which just means a baby form of a type of insect. So I'm just going to try to coax him out so you guys can see him. Where are you, little buddy? Is that you? Oh, he's on the other side. I found him. So there he is. Whoop. So there he is. Look at that. So remember, that's a spittle bug. That they make the bubble, almost like a bubble nest around them to protect them. It keeps them moist, constantly wet, and protected from predators. So next time you see what looks like spit on a plant, take another look. Also see if there's other what looks like piles of spit around it. Because if it's just a lone pile of spit, maybe it is just a person's spit. So don't touch that, especially right now in spreading germs. But take a look and see if it's a spittle bug.
Look at how many more spittle bug patches you can find.
So I wanted to introduce you guys to a really important plant for our pollinators, particularly our monarch butterflies. So this plant right here is known as milkweed. This is a common milkweed, and what's so important about milkweed, it's actually where the monarchs, they lay their eggs, and the caterpillars, they eat the milkweed. And what's so neat about this process, not only are they getting nourished, is that the milkweed compound is actually making them poisonous. They're developing a toxin that if any birds try to eat them or any predators try to eat them, they get really sick. So it's actually their defense mechanism. It's an adaptation that they develop by eating these plants.
So look at all the other milkweed plants. Remember, milkweed is what monarch caterpillars eat, and the milkweed makes them poisonous.
So right now we're entering the salt marsh transition, meaning you're switching the different type of habitat to the shoreline mud flats. And so we'll look at the difference. What's the difference from behind me? Let's go a little bit right here. All right, from behind me to right now. What differences do you see? So one difference I want to point out to you is when we're out here, there's not a lot of places for animals to hide because there's not as much vegetation, not as much plants. Over here, there's plenty of places for different animals to hide and have their babies and find food, right? So if you're gonna be a creature that lives out there, you gotta know how to survive. So let's look at some of those creatures that do know how to do that.
So what we're looking at here are a bunch of mud snails.
So some of those creatures that know how to survive out in the mud flats are mud snails. You can see that they're a similar color to the mud, and they have a hard shell to protect their soft body. So they have one shell, and they also have a protective little door called an operculum. And so if you ever see that it's hard, you can't get in there, it's because they shut the front door, right? And so sometimes you can hum to the snails because they actually think it's the sound of the tide going in and out. So if you like to sing to your mollusk friend, you can do so. So 2 birds just landed. They're actually known as oystercatchers, and they're a protected bird. So I'm gonna flip you around so you can see them. So protected bird means that they're a threatened species, meaning there's not that many of them, and that their nests are normally some of the ones that are roped off at the beaches. So it's really important that you respect those netted areas, because they're where these types of birds are nesting, and they'll only be able to be successful if their eggs are able to hatch and their babies are able to be healthy and to find food. So I'm gonna show you guys what these birds are.
So as we're looking at these birds, look at that long beak that he has. What do you think he eats with that long beak? So oyster catchers use that beak to eat worms and snails and clams. Look at him. It's almost like a straw.
So when you're exploring the mudflat habitat, I want you to look for all these shells. All of these shells actually make up different creatures, and mostly creatures known as bivalves. So bivalve means 2 shells. So this is a rib mussel. It has 2 shells, 1, 2. And also we have a quahog shell. Now this is only one part of the skeleton of this creature, that it would have a soft body inside, and also they're actually the type of clams that we eat out in the restaurants. And then we have a really important shell for New Haven, and so this is an enormous oyster, and it actually has some shells of little oysters on it, which is really cool. So these are known as bivalves, and they're actually creatures that help to filter the water. And then we have some really important plants that can be found around here, or macroalgae, which means big algae, and that's known as seaweed. So this is sea lettuce, and so this is actually an edible form. You can eat it, but this one's really sandy. I'll try to find some cleaner ones, and I'll eat it a little bit so I can make my lunch. But right now it'd just be a sandwich, and I don't want to eat that. Okay. What's that? It's got this eye, or it looks like an eye. It's definitely a part of something. Is it part of something living? Let's think about it. Alright, so it looks like it has an eye. It had some insides. So this is what's known as an exoskeleton. What? Have you guys ever heard of that word before? Exoskeleton? These are things that crabs have. So this is actually not necessarily related to a crab, but it has crab in its name. This is a horseshoe crab. Horseshoe crabs have been living on this planet for over 300 million years. That's way before the dinosaurs. And so this is just part of a horseshoe crab, but even though it's only part of it, is this still a living thing? Even though it's no longer alive, it is part of a living thing. If I had that rock again, oh, found one right here, would we consider this rock as a dead rock? No, because the rock was never alive, right? This horseshoe crab was alive. And a really cool thing to find on the beach. And as it breaks down into little pieces, it actually turns into the sand. Makes up all those little particles in the sand that we can have fun with and make sand castles with. So that's really cool how living things can break down back into the dirt, providing nutrients, the food that other living things need. I think that's pretty cool, right? Thank you so much, Miss Moore's class, for joining me. I'm sorry we couldn't meet in person, but I hope you enjoyed a few of the things I got to share with you at Wharf, and that you have a great and safe summer.